Hello, it's Andrine, a Jewish American priestess, and I'm bringing you a reading today for the new month of Iyar. Iyar is the month that comes in with the new moon in Taurus, and this month we have Taurus coming in on Tuesday, and then Iyar came in on Thursday. But regardless, it's the spring new moon after Passover, as we're in this transition period between the liberation at Pesach, where we were released from Egypt, and now we are heading toward Sinai to receive revelation. So we're in this kind of middle space between where we experienced freedom and where we receive revelation. So liberation to revelation. And this month of Iyar, which is known as the month of healing. It's supposed to be an acronym for Ani Adonai, or Havaya Rocha, which is I, the Lord your God, or I, the divine, the one who is becoming, is your healer. So we are in this midst of healing that happens in this month of Iyar. And so to that end, we're going to do a reading, a full spread reading for the month of Iyar, and to see what is going to be coming up for us in this month. So I'm going to start by stirring up the Hebrunes, casting them all down, and we'll see how Iyar plays out this month. All right. So we're going to start by taking out all the Hebrunes that are face down in our reading. Okay, and then we're going to turn each of them so they're face up and we can read them more clearly. All right, and then I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see them. Let's begin on the highest part of our reading, which is over here on the right. The upper right, we have the letter Pei, and the letter Pei is said to be the mouth of the divine, which is speaking creation into existence. It looks like a spiral, and it is that spiral linear time that we talk about, in terms of that time isn't just linear. It doesn't just go from, past to future, but it also sort of spirals out into a larger thing. So the Pei being the spiral, and also the number 80, which is that infinity loop times 10, speaks to this idea of the infinite and infinite time, and about how things are spiraling out, that the universe is continuing to expand as it has after creation. Because it is the mouth, it speaks to communication. It talks about how we are in a time of communication where we need to communicate with each other, that we need to communicate with ourselves, that we need to communicate with the divine, that it is helpful for us to speak what we would like to see in the world, that we're in this liminal space between having been released from slavery and not knowing what freedom is. So we get to imagine what that should be for us. And because Pei begins the word for time, which is pa'am in Hebrew, it does have that concept of spiraling out into an infinite period of time. So we have the ability to create through speech this manifestation of what we'd like to see in the world. And infinity, that spiraling out into all things. It's also the letter that rules over the planet Venus in the sky, in the book of the creation, the Sefer Yetzirah. So there may be something here about speaking words of love, or finding a way to envelop with love the infinite, and to recognize that the infinite is full of love. So that's the toppest letter in our reading. And to that end, I would say that's about what's the most helpful, the most useful thing to take into account here. Next, I'm going to bring it down to the letter just below that. That's the letter Shin. Letter Shin is the mother letter of fire. It's one of the creation elements. So we have the three creation elements, the Aleph, the Mem, and the Shin. And Shin is this mother letter of fire. You can see it looks a little bit like fire. It's got those three Yuds standing on top of three Vavs, maybe another Vav at the bottom there. So the fire is licking up from beneath. It's the letter that rules over the sun and the moon and the stars in the sky, all the lights and all the fires of the sky. It is the first letter of the word Shekhinah, which is the indwelling presence of the feminine divine, and the first letter of the word Shalom, meaning wholeness or peace. And I love that it's here below the Pei, because we have this idea of this infinite, and then we have fire. Fire, which is inspiration, fire, which is about transformation and change and wholeness, bringing light to a situation, bringing inspiration and motivation to a situation. So that's coming up for us here in this month of Iyar, that we are being inspired. We're being inspired to move forward toward wholeness, that we're being inspired to tap in to the indwelling presence of the divine feminine and find our way forward to create with fire, to cleanse with fire as well. Transformation, however that plays out for you this coming month, is right here in the reading. Next in line here, going right to left, is we have the Samech. Did I forget to turn that up right? It looks like I did. It's slightly canted, but the Samech is the letter that represents a circle, right? So it's a circle, and it looks like it's got a little tiny point on the upper left corner. The Samech is about being surrounded with protection and with love. It begins the word sovev, meaning to surround. So like a big hug is coming around us. In the Proto or Paleo Hebrew, it looked like a thorn, and it meant thorn. So it has this connotation of maybe a little bit of agitation and prickliness. In the Sefer Yetzirah, it is the foundation of agitation. And it's also the letter that is about setting up good boundaries around ourselves. So while we're in this midst of this month of transitioning from slavery in toward our freedom and toward our revelation, it's important to establish good boundaries, to surround ourselves with good people who love us and will support us, and also maybe put up some thorns so that we are protected, to make sure that we are not being pursued by our enemies, that we might need to establish some thorny hedges around our homestead, or like a rose that is beautiful and yet has thorns to protect it, so no one just comes along and picks it. So that's an important factor here, setting up good boundaries, being surrounded with people who care and love us, and to be surrounded by the divine protection itself, knowing that we are keeping in what needs to be protected and keeping out that which could be dangerous or destructive for us. So the Samech is here. Here we're going to go up a little bit, and we have the letter Kaf. It's sort of in the center of our situation here. The letter Kaf is the letter that represents the palm of a hand. And so it has this connotation of giving and receiving, as we have an outstretched palm. And it can also be seen as the palm or the hand of the Shekhinah, the divine, who is lifting us up and holding us in these transitional times, and providing healing, opening our hand with medicinal herbs, perhaps. The Kaf is the letter that begins the word koach, meaning strength. So we have strength here, but it's an open-handed strength. It's not it can be seen as an oppressive strength, because the palm of the hand can also push down on someone. But I'm liking to think of it more so as that support, that lifting up. The Kaf is the letter that rules over the sun in the sky. So the sun, which is our source energy, our source power, but sometimes we need shelter from it. So in terms of the divine hand sheltering us as well as lifting us up, we have this Kaf here saying that we are protected, that we are being buoyed up by the hand of the divine and sheltered from the sun itself, and receiving that sun, that life-giving power in this month as the seasons change also from spring towards summer. Below that in our reading we have the letter Nun, and Nun is the letter, I'm going to pull it up here, but I'll put it back underneath the hay, so it seems significant today, that we have this letter that means humility. You can see it looks like somebody who's kneeling or has their head bowed. It's the first letter of the word ne'aman, meaning humble or humility. So there's something about remaining humble in this month as well as we move forward. Maybe it's a little bit of a challenge because it is slightly low on the reading, that we have a need to tap into our slow, contemplative self. It's about faithfulness. It's about loyalty. It's the foundation of locomotion in the Sefer Yetzirah. So starting off slowly and steadily so that we can move forward and pick up pace and remain strong to endure as we move forward. It's also the first letter of the word nes, which means miracle. So maybe we need to find our humility right now in order to discover the miracles that are coming. Maybe we'll be faced with a miracle that will humble us as well in this month ahead. It is the number 50 in Gematria, and 50 is known as the Jubilee year, when 50 years have passed. 7 times 7 Shemitah years plus 1. We get this time where the Jubilee happens, where all the slaves are free, that all the land is returned to its original owner, which is, in fact, the divine. So there's something coming that is a freeing, a major freeing of slavery, that there's abundance here, and humility in the face of that as well. And again, that's a little bit lower in the reading, so maybe there's some significance to a challenge or a fear around that. And then I'm going to come all the way down to the bottom here with the letter Aleph. At the very bottom of our reading, we have the first letter of the Aleph Bet. And the Aleph Bet begins with this letter, which represents the divine above and the divine below, and the connection between heaven and earth, and the division between heaven and earth. You can see you have a yud in the top and a sort of a stylized yud in the bottom, and then this vav between, which is connecting them. So in some ways it's like this connection between freedom and revelation. It's this connection between the heaven and the earth, the connection between divinity and humanity. It's the first letter of the word El, which means God, Elohim, El Elyon, Adonai. All these names of God begin with the Aleph, but as does the word Adam and Adamah, which is human or mud. So these connections and these divisions, the number 1 is here. It is the mother letter of air, so it speaks to breath, being able to tap into that element that is unseen yet keeps us alive. It's the number 1, so it's beginning and the balance of above and below, the wind, the air, unity within multiplicity, and multiplicity within unity. The Aleph is the number 1, but if you change the vowels, it becomes Aleph, which means 1,000. So we have this concept of the divine, which is 1. The divine is only 1, and yet it is all these things as well, more than we can possibly comprehend. You know, we have one body that we live in, but it's made up of trillions of cells. And there's that paradox between unity and multiplicity, between connection and division, between divinity and humanity. So there's a sort of liminality between those things, that where do we fit? Where do we fit in? It's the chest and the lungs in the body, because it's having to do with air and the mother letter of air and that creation element of air. It's very low in our reading. It's the lowest letter. So I like to think of it as being supportive, actually. I mean, it could be that, oh, we're having a huge challenge or fear around that, but maybe it's just supporting us here. The air is supporting us like it always does, without us even having to think about it. It's here low on the reading, but it is being our foundation and our support. We're going to move back up to the center here with the letter Hey, which is leaning on Nun. And I kind of love that. Hey is the letter that is the first letter of the word Hineni, meaning here I am, available and ready for service. So it's about presence. It's about showing up and doing the work, about being being able to show up and say, here I am, when you hear the call of the divine. When the divine calls your name and says, come, you say, Hineni, here I am, ready. You may not even know where you're going when you hear that call, but the appropriate response is always, here I am, Hineni. So showing up and being present, it's the sense of sight in the Sefer Yetzirah, which I interpret as, if we show up, we'll be able to see. If we show up and say, I'm ready, we will be shown the next steps in our path. It is 2 of the 4 letters of the divine name, the Yud He Vav He. So to that end, we have this idea of presence and showing up, being there twice in the name of divinity, which is becoming the contraction of the past, present, and future verbs of the verb to be. So presence is incredibly important in being connected with the divine. And it's lying on top of the nun here, sort of perched on top of it. So it's connected. It's connected to humility, showing up, being present for yourself, being present for the divine, showing up and expecting the miracle and waiting for it, saying, I am ready. Next in our reading, we'll go up to the Gimel, which is here, and I will scooch it out and then put it back. The Gimel is the letter that is a foot or a camel stepping forward toward justice. The Gimel is the first letter of the word Gan, as in Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. And so it's this, both this idea of stepping into the garden and maybe stepping out of the garden. It is the binary transformation of peace and evil, or peace being shalom, wholeness, and maybe brokenness. And being able to tell the difference between what is good and what is evil, being able to tell what is whole and what is broken. That tree in the Garden of Eden where we were told not to eat of the tree of knowledge, and yet we did, and because of that we had to walk out. We had to leave with this foot stepping forward. And yet it's also the letter that rules over the planet Jupiter in the sky, and Jupiter in Hebrew is tzedek, meaning justice. So we're stepping forward toward justice. We're knowing the difference between what is right and what is wrong now, having to leave Gan Eden, having to leave the garden. But with that, we could get to walk toward justice and right things that are wrong. So we have this here, just a little bit above the presence and the humility that is telling us step forward toward justice as we move through this month of Iyar, as we discover what it is, as we discover what is right and what is wrong, then we get to step forward toward justice. On top of that, we have the Ayin, the letter Ayin, which means an eye. And it can be us seeing our way forward, and it can be us being watched over by the divine. The letter Ayin is the letter that is the number 70 in Gematria. So it has this connotation of a very large ending. There are 7 days of creation, and 10 times 7 is 70. So it's like a very large ending that is coming in right now, or near the end of the month perhaps. And we'll be able to see our way forward at that point. Maybe we need to trust that we're being watched over by the divine. That we have this idea of judgment. It is affiliated with the tribe of Dan, which means judgment. So some big ending is coming that will require a final judgment. And when that happens, we'll be able to see better how things will play out. And one of the things I love about this letter and the way it's presented in the Sefer Yetzirah, the version I read by Rabbi Jill Hammer, is that it's the foundation of laughter as well. So even though there's a big ending coming, and even though there's judgment here, once we are able to see how things will play out, then we'll have some laughter. Once we laugh, maybe we'll be able to see better how things should go. And it's lying on top of the letter Gimel here. So it's saying to me that underlying this vision is justice. Underlying this ending is some kind of justice that's coming in. That when we step forward toward justice, we'll be able to see better, that we'll be able to laugh as things play out in the end. Next, we have the letter Vav, which is low in our reading. And it is the letter that's affiliated with this month, the month of Iyar. And it is a long, tall, straight spine, as if someone is standing there with their head slightly bowed, a little bit more humility here, like with the Nun. But they're standing up tall, protected by the divine and planting themselves into the earth like a sprout that has maybe popped up above the soil in the springtime. It's the letter that means and in Hebrew, so it's about connection. It's about connection with the heaven and the earth in the same way as the Aleph. And it's got that feeling of being connected with another person. In the Proto-Hebrew, it was a peg or a hook that connected things together, like a tent peg, tethering the Mishkan, the temple in the desert, to the ground so that it wouldn't blow away. And maybe one of the pins that held together the veils around the Holy of the Holies. So it's important. It's an important thing, although it's small, to be able to connect. To be able to connect with oneself, to connect with another, to connect with the divine. And it's the number 6 in Gematria, so it has this feeling of the 6 directions of north, south, east, west, above and below. So being surrounded on all sides. And the 6th day of creation, which is the day in which the divine created all the animals, including humans. So the 6th day of creation sort of leans toward the portent of something coming to an end, something almost coming to an end. And the month of Iyar is wrapped up with this because we're almost toward Sinai. We're almost at the point where we've received Torah. It's affiliated with the tribe of Issachar. And the tribe of Issachar means a man for hire because of the mandrakes. There's a story in Torah where Reuven, one of the sons of Jacob, found some mandrakes and he gave them to his mother, Leah, who then used the mandrakes to purchase a night with her husband, who was at that point, I guess, just staying with Rachel, her sister. And when Jacob slept with Leah, Issachar was conceived. And so he was a man who came out of this union where she purchased a night with her own husband. It's an interesting connotation to be named Issachar after that. But I also discovered in my learnings that it can also be seen as Ish Sakar, which is a man worships Sakar, who is an Egyptian deity with a head of a hawk. And you can see the top of it looks a little bit like a hawk's head. And he is one of these Egyptian gods who had the body of a man and a hawk head. And he also carried a staff that looked just like the Vav. So I love that connection with Egypt that comes in, that we have this staff that is used to guide us and walk with us out of Egypt, and that the hawk-headed God who can see all things is also tied up with the Vav here. So this month, as we walk through, bowing our heads slightly, leaning on our staff to get connected from Passover to Shavuot, that this month of Iyar is that connecting month, and that we are connecting with the divine, with each other, with ourselves, stepping forward and heading out. And Vav is also the foundation of hearing in the Sefer Yetzirah. So we are listening very carefully right now and trying to hear the voice of the divine as we tread lightly toward Sinai. And that's right here next to the Aleph. I love that. It's here supporting this also with the Vav in the center of the Aleph, that idea of connection with humanity and divinity. And the last letter in our reading today is the letter Yud. And the Yud is that smallest of all the letters, the letter that is a seed or a sperm, something that can create very, very many other things out of itself. It's also the first letter of the divine name, the Yud, He, Vav, He. And we have all those letters here. We have the Yud, the He, the Vav, and the He. So the name of the divine, that 4-letter unpronounceable name. The Yud is that one point, the seed, the atom, the building blocks of all of the universe. It is the building blocks of all the letters. Every letter you'll see here has a Yud in it somewhere. It's that one point that we start with. And so at the end of our month here, the way I'm seeing this is that we have all that we need to start something new. That we have this seed that's being planted after all of this travel, this connecting that we've taken to get from where we've been to where we are going. It's the number 10 in Gematria, so it has this idea of oneness times 10, this infinite, ultimate manifestation of the one. And we are stepping off, like the Fool, into a new adventure. It is the letter that begins the word Yad, which is hand. So another hand in addition to the Kaf up here, we've got the Yud, the Yad, which is the hand that is the pointer toward Torah. It's the little tool that we use to read Torah when we are reading from a scroll. It's called a Yad, and it looks like a little hand pointing. So we're pointing toward Torah as we head out of the month at the end, and using our hands to create what we'd like to see in the world, that thing that we spoke to back at the beginning, that we started to speak what we'd like to see. There was some transformation through fire, that we're being surrounded by support and protection, that we have the hand of the Shekhinah lifting us up and sheltering us from the sun. We're coming into a time of humility and waiting for the miracle by staying present. That we have the Aleph here, again, supporting us, that connection and division between humanity and divinity, as well as the air, the invisible, is supporting us here. We're stepping forward toward justice with the Gimel, and when we do, we'll be able to see and laugh at what is coming, that the staff here is holding us with the Vav, the actual letter that's connected with the month of Iyar. And as we step out of the month, we come through with a seed, a sperm, something that contains multitudes within it, the first letter of the divine name, the Yud, He, Vav, He, and remembering that the divine is our healer in the month of Iyar. So find your healing. Speak what you'd like to see. Know that you're protected, surrounded. If we can remain humble, show up, lean on that connection and division with humanity and divinity, we'll find our way to the other side. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a beautiful Iyar, and I will see you here next time.